Today, I wanted to talk to you about 15-minute cities. What they are and why you should be concerned about them. 15-minute cities is an urban planning concept promoted by a French professor and later supported by the World Economic Forum and other globalists as another way to establish control over the masses. Having everything you need close to your house, without needing to drive to reach it, might seem like an uncontroversial concept. But so-called 15-minute cities have become central to conspiracy theories about freedom and climate change. The original idea is based on rethinking urban planning to make sure no one is traveling more than 15 minutes by bicycle or on foot to reach essential services. However, others have posted online about how this concept could be used to forcibly prevent residents from leaving their home area. Now that idea has leaked into mainstream UK politics. During the Conservative Party's conference this week, Secretary of State for Transport Mark Harper told an audience that he was against sinister plans by local councils to decide how often you go to the shops and that they can ration who uses the roads and when. This idea is echoing much of the online chatter about the policy. So what are 15-minute cities? The term was initially coined in 2016 by Carlos Moreno, a professor at the Sorbonne in Paris, as a way of rethinking urban planning. In his original vision, nobody would be more than a short walk from essential services like doctors, shops, or even their jobs. The idea had been adopted by several cities around the world, with the mayor of Paris one of its most high-profile supporters. It is not a new idea. Neighborhoods around the world that predate the mass use of cars were historically built this way. The modern concept has been recently promoted as part of efforts to reduce reliance on driving, especially in busy, congested places, and create more pleasant, self-sufficient communities. How do low-traffic neighborhoods, or LTNs, figure into all of this? 15-minute cities are often lumped together with low-traffic neighborhoods, or LTNs for short, a concept that originates in the UK and was popularized during COVID-19. Allowing streets to be blocked off for pedestrian use, conspiracy theorists have come to see them as part of a broader war on drivers designed to curtail their freedom. Could this be true? Other recent road policies like low-emission zones, which set tougher standards for petrol and diesel engines in some areas to reduce air pollution, have also been targeted by the same groups. Where did opposition to 15-minute cities come from? Some of the first viral posts about the theory centered on the city of Oxford in the UK. Measures to deal with notorious traffic problems faced local resistance. Much of the outrage centered on the town council's plan to reduce traffic on certain through roads, offering residents permits for a specific number of car trips on these roads, as well as a separate proposal to create local amenities and community centers as part of a 15-minute cities plan. Local campaigners point to a December 2022 tweet by Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson, an influential voice among the far right, attacking 15-minute cities for supercharging the conspiracy theories associated with the campaign. Variations of this view would subsequently pop up elsewhere in the country, with London, Bath, and even the village of Thetford hosting their protest movements. But the seed of this movement was arguably planted during the COVID pandemic. Paranoia about a climate lockdown began to grow online in September 2020, after pre-existing climate skeptics began to spread the false idea that the pandemic was simply a precursor to a wider plot to control people and force them to stay in their homes. 15-minute cities fit neatly into this narrative. Why are 15-minute cities and LTNs important now? The UK government has recently shifted its position on net zero and climate change policy. The Conservative Party's rhetoric on climate has been ambitious and included measures like a 2030 deadline for sales of new petrol and diesel cars, as well as policies to improve insulation and encourage more travel by walking and cycling. But after a surprise by-election victory in the outer London borough of Uxbridge over the summer, in a campaign that centered on the controversial ULEZ ultra-low emission zone policy, the government began to lean into the rhetoric that helped them secure the victory. About a month ago, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak made a speech walking back some of the government's net zero commitments, including pushing back the ban on sales of new petrol and diesel cars to 2035. Polling suggests that while British people support environmental policy, they are very concerned about the cost of living, so the government has sought to focus on claims that net zero plans will make life more expensive. Polls also suggest the party is facing a disastrous election next year, and Sunak is seeking to maintain the support of some of his party's core voters, including car owners, who tend to live in suburban and rural areas outside Labour strongholds in the city centres, to avoid a wipeout. There are more clues in what government ministers told the media after Harper's speech, revealing the influence of online chatter on the government. This is coming up in discussions on doorsteps up and down the country, it's coming up in discussions on forums online, said Andrew Bowie, a minister in the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, on BBC Radio's PM programme. If people are concerned about it, we need to address those concerns. So why exactly are people concerned about these 15-minute cities? To seize more control of people's lives, globalists are pushing the false idea that 15-minute cities will save the planet and help all of humanity. 15-minute cities are popping up everywhere, and the World Economic Forum, the authors of the Great Reset, are wildly enthusiastic about them. Last year it was announced that Paris, France, would become a 15-minute city, and now the British city of Oxford is next. However, outraged Brits are fighting back. The Oxford City Council has announced that it will divide Oxford into 15-minute neighbourhoods, or small 15-minute towns, which are billed as greener, cleaner and safer. These new green cities, which make services accessible to residents within 15 minutes of their homes, are supposed to save the planet and help all humanity. Instead, they are nothing more than a way for them to restrict, coerce, fine, punish, surveil, and limit the fundamental right of freedom of movement for residents. For example, residents are not allowed to leave their 15-minute city by car for more than the government allotted times a year. Violators will be fined. In addition, the government will track and control your every movement through your smartphones and facial recognition technology. The new lockdown for Climate Oxford, which has declared a climate emergency, is hoping their 15-minute cities will help achieve the Council's net zero carbon Oxford vision by 2040. As early as 2024, Oxford plans to impose climate lockdowns on residents to help achieve the Council's net zero carbon Oxford vision by 2040. The 15-minute city concept is also crucial for the United Nations Agenda 2030. And not surprisingly, the World Economic Forum is also pushing the idea. Oxford will be divided into 6 zones to save the planet from global warming. Electronic fences are placed on access roads to ensure residents remain within their zone. The Oxford government will graciously allow residents to leave their 15-minute city a maximum of 100 times a year, but then they must first register their car, which is tracked throughout the city via smart cameras. While the initial allotment of escape tickets may seem reasonable to some, once the public accepts that the state has the right to confine you, it is guaranteed that they will add additional restrictions and fewer permits to leave your zone. This was established very clearly and quickly in many Western nations in the past few years under the rubric of COVID-19 restrictions. Protests. Oxford residents are furious over council plans to turn the city into 15-minute controlled zones. They have been brushed away by the council, which has ignored their displeasure. Oxford citizens have taken to the streets. The media is silent, of course, writes UK journalist Sophie Corcoran. She implored people to stand with the citizens of Oxford against this type of totalitarianism. At the end of this week, thousands of the world's elites will be jetting off to Davos in their private jets, whilst people around the globe are starting to be confined to 15-minute zones in their cities and need a permit to drive over it, Corcoran said. Corcoran is referring to the globalist conference in the Swiss ski resort of Davos, where 52 heads of state and government meet. Nearly 600 company directors have also been invited. Public sessions are held, but it is mainly where the globalists make their deals behind the scenes in secret back rooms. While people worldwide are forced to choose between eating dinner or heating their homes, the elites will fly to Davos in their private planes, stay in posh hotels, eat expensive food, and scheme how to confine us to our 15-minute prisons and more. I hope this gets you thinking about what the Great Reset is all about. The World Economic Forum is leading the way for the elites to control the masses. 15-minute cities is just one example of techniques that are being championed by the elites to gain more control over all of us. Certainly, they are using the climate change issue as a reason for the masses to join the 15-minute cities and some of the other techniques being pushed. To watch some of our other videos on cultural issues, go to our website at nehemiahreset.org or to our rumble.com account. We look forward to seeing you again shortly on another of our videos. Have a great day!